So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about what I'm looking for in a 66 Mustang. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. First of all, a V8 engine, and it's going to be one of three options: a 289 C code, which is the 200 horsepower, the A code, the 225 horsepower, or a transplanted 302. And I'll get into more details and the differences on those in subsequent episodes. And then it's got to be a manual transmission, and so really there's three choices. The factory 3-speed, the factory 4-speed, or potentially a transplanted 5-speed from the later Fox body and SN95 era Mustangs. And then next is a GT or not a GT. And I'm seeing a lot of GT features on non-GT cars, but that's one factor to take a look at. And then fourth on the list is the interior, the pony interior, with the seats, door trim panels, the wood grained dash are the main features, and as well as that really nice steering wheel that I like a lot. And then finally, the wheels. Now there's standard wheels. Obviously the stock wheel was a hubcap, and then there's the upgraded Magnum wheels, and then I've seen some aftermarket Magnums from the later Mustangs transplanted down to the 65, 66, which would look really sweet as well. And then the various aftermarket wheels. So I'm going to cover those in details and also try to give some price ideas as well. Concourse quality, aftermarket quality, driver quality, and so on, and just kind of give you my take on the differences. And so hopefully it'll help you in your search to buy a Mustang as well. So as I review what I'm looking for in a 66 Mustang, it'll give you an idea of the value of options that you may be considering for yourself. So really there's 5 different things that I'm looking at in what I'm going to pick up. The engine options, the transmission, it's going to be a manual transmission, no automatics for me. And then what do I do about the GT, pony interior versus the standard interior, and the wheels. So here's a stock engine compartment. If you're looking for a car for concourse quality, you want to find something like this. Here's the opportunity to make it look concourse quality. Obviously it looks like an original type survivor car in pretty good condition, but still that engine needs some treatment to win any show trophies. This particular car has got power steering. You can see that pump on the driver's side of the engine bay. Characteristics of the stock block engines, whether it's an A code or a C code. You've got the stamped steel valve covers painted engine color. This is painted the light early Ford blue, vacuum advanced distributor. I can't tell from this picture whether it's a 2-barrel or a 4-barrel, but it's going to look pretty much the same. So stock engine, basically, that's one option. Here's a slightly upgraded. It's got a hypo style air cleaner. You can see it's still got a cast iron manifold. So despite putting on this fancy air cleaner, putting on the export brace and the Monte Carlo bar, it's still pretty much a stock engine. I'm guessing they've upgraded the carburetor along with that, and because we still have a factory radiator in it. Now again, we've got this is the later Ford blue, really nice looking engine compartment, but not a lot of engine modifications. We're still seeing cast iron manifold, and we can see the carburetor. Does not look like the Autolite, so I'm guessing that's a Holly, and I'm assuming it's going to be a 4-barrel. They've got headers onto it. Whether it's an A code or a C code, I don't know, but you can't really tell looking at the engine itself which one it is. And then you've got stamped steel valve covers with chrome plating. Looks nice, but really over stock you've just added the headers, 4-barrel carburetor, and a less restrictive air cleaner. Now this is actually a 302 that was dropped in on this particular one for sale. Oh, and all these engine pictures are for cars that have been that are currently listed for sale as I make this recording, which is in actually New Year's Eve in 2021, December 31st, 2021. But this is the wide range of options you can find in cars, in Mustangs. So radiator, aftermarket. You can see electronic ignition has been added. We've got an Edelbrock carburetor, and you can barely see through here an aluminum intake, smaller diameter high flow air cleaner, And they've done a slightly different treatment with their shock tower struts or braces. I'm not quite sure why they did that, but it'll work. Maybe it's a little stiffer, but you're better off if that wraps around. And then next engine has had some serious work done to it. If you notice down here, we've got headers, aluminum intake, aftermarket carburetor, the nice fancy Shelby air cleaner, and fancy Ford racing valve covers. And if you notice here, we have aluminum heads. So I don't think this is a hypo because you've still got the vacuum advance distributor, which is the single point. The hypos came with the dual point, and I think anybody building a hypo is going to have a dual point in there, or else an aftermarket electronic ignition. But still, they've done some serious work to this. So with the headers, with the aluminum heads, aluminum intake, it wouldn't surprise me if this is a total engine rebuild and they've put in some better pistons and a little beefier cam. But that's another option as well. And I've got this picture in here because I like these valve covers. So whatever car I get, whatever valve covers it's got, they're getting these valve covers. So in this one, you'll also notice aluminum intake, aluminum heads, the fancy valve covers, but still it's got cast iron manifolds, which is a little surprising to me. Unless they're the the hypo fast or high flow exhaust manifolds, I don't know why they did that. I would have thought they'd throw in a set of headers, but nonetheless, still a pretty nice engine. And again, these are engines that are in cars that are currently for sale, so you can get a wide range. And then here's the last one in the group. We've got a late model 302 from a Mustang dropped in here. And you can see it's got an Edelbrock aftermarket intake, which is the same style fuel injection system that they have on the later Fox body Mustangs. And then nice shock tower brace, because they couldn't clear the standard ones due to the plenum for the fuel injection system or for the air feed here. So again, this is another engine option to choose from. So what are the differences? A code 200 horsepower, excuse me, C code 200 horsepower, A code 225 horsepower, and then the 302 Fox body rated at 225 horsepower, but the later model engines are rated to a different standard, so it's probably a higher relative power output than the early model 289s. Plus, I believe it burns regular gas, so that's an advantage as well. Now, with all the different engine modifications that you see, for me, I don't really care if I get a C code or an A code. I'd like to get the A code. That'd be my preference, but I'm not going to pay a super premium for it because I can basically bolt on power pretty quickly. Intake manifold, carburetor, headers, boom. There's at least a 10% and probably a 20% horsepower increase. Headers, assuming also with a dual exhaust. So, say I add 40 horsepower to 200, now I'm at 240. Granted, if I take a code, that same 20% increase, I'm going to add another, 45 horsepower. Obviously I've still got 25 more horsepower, or 27 and a half, whatever it works out to. But you get the idea. So you can still get some pretty good performance in that difference, unless you're tracking it. A 20 horsepower difference in total output isn't going to really make a lot of difference in your daily driving of the car. You're still going to get performance. You're still going to have fun. So I'm not too worried about which engine choice I'm going to get. I want to make sure the engine's clean. I want to make sure it's solid and running well. Preference for an A code just because of the originality and the collector car premium for that. But as long as it's a small block Ford, I'm happy. Transmissions: 3-speed, 4-speed, 5-speed from the Fox body. 3-speed is not a performance transmission. It's got a very low first gear, and it also has a pretty low gear in the rear end. So from my own experience, I had a 69 Mustang as my first car with a 3-speed, and at 60 miles an hour I was only turning 2,000 RPM. So it's basically designed for economy. Now the 4-speed came with the rear end, changed to a 325. You can get it even higher than that in some of the later cars, but obviously turning more engine RPM. But the first gear is designed for that higher rear end gear, or the taller rear end gear, whatever you want to call it, so that you can still get good acceleration off the line. Now there's quite a price difference in converting a 3-speed to a 4-speed, or as well 3 or 4-speed converting to the Tremec 5-speed. The Tremec is a decent transmission. It gets a lot of knocks because it's not all that great. It maxes out at about 400 horsepower. Beyond that, and you start breaking parts, it needs a decent aftermarket shifter to shift well. Of course, I find the Hurst shifter on the 4-speed is a good option as well to get those fast shifts. But that Tremec is a decent transmission, and if you've got one, it's got a great first gear and it's got a great 5th gear overdrive. So a lot of advantages to it. Now the car itself, GT or not a GT, I'm seeing a lot of cars that have GT features. They're getting the fog lamps, they're getting the rear trumpet exhaust through the rear valence panel. They might even toss in that GT badge, but the key is, does it have disc brakes? If it doesn't have disc brakes, it's not a GT. And the GT also has a little bit bigger sway bar, although that's a relatively inexpensive part to change. But the disc brakes, to convert a drum brake car to disc brakes, there's some cost involved, and you can go, any number of kits all the way up to the the Wildwood discs, and just go crazy. But that's some cost to that. So my preference is, if I can find it, to get a GT car, and I'll sacrifice a few other things for that. The pony interior. I love the pony interior. I think it just looks so cool. If you look at the blue and white version in the upper left, that door trim panel with that molded armrest and the vertical padding, here, it just looks so cool. That jet aircraft style door lever, I think just looks awesome. Console is optional. You can get a console on the base interior, you can get a console on the upgraded interior. But if you've got the pony interior, you've got the wood grain dash, glove box door, also on the console, and you get the upgraded wheel. And here you can see the better shot. I just love that steering wheel. So if I get a car that does not have a pony interior, it's getting this wheel anyway. $400 to get that added. And the other thing about the pony interior, you can see here, it's got the chrome trim around the pedals. And so this, you can see, is a true GT car because it's got the disc brakes and there's the fog light switch. So unless somebody went to all that work to convert it, but chances are it's an original GT. And then it's also got the rally pack, which is an aftermarket option, and it's probably something I will add to mine. I don't see a lot of cars for sale with the rally pack, so there you go. You can convert a car to a pony interior if it doesn't have it. I'm vain enough or picky enough that I'd throw in the door trim panels. They're about $1,000 to do that conversion. The wheel is about $400. I'm not quite sure on the price on the dash, if you can just get the wood grain applique, or if you've got to buy the whole new glove box door and dash panel. But that's something I would consider doing if I don't find one with the standard pony interior. The wheels. Here, everything is all over the map. There's all kinds of wheels available on cars for sale. The first one, upper left, is the stock hubcap. And that's great if you're doing a concourse car, an original, even if it's a 6. This is obviously a V8. But any kind of enthusiast is going to get rid of these pretty quick. Lower left, you've got the wire wheel hubcap. Again, great for those concourse quality cars. This is from a later model, the Magnum 500 wheel, which I think looks great on the 65, 66. It's not stock. It's a wheel I would consider putting on mine if it doesn't have it. And this is the upgraded wheel that's stock for the 65, 66. You can see this one has the black background. This one has the gray. I think they both look pretty good. I'm a little partial to the black of the two, but they just look really good on the car. Now, upper right, you can see, I knew them as Krager mags when I was a kid. You can see them on the Shelby race cars, the GT350s. It was pretty ubiquitous in the 60s and 70s. Everybody was throwing these on for their cars. You see them on a lot of Camaros and Chevelles, and everybody was adding these to their cars. That was like the mag wheel of choice. And it still makes it look like a pretty bad car. The chrome is another option. Some people like the chrome. I like the gray look myself. If I had these, I would sell them and buy something else. If I've got this, I'd probably keep it. But chances are I'm going to put the wheel on that I want after I get the car. If I've got everything, great. Now the chances of finding everything I want in the car are slim and none, at least in the price point that I want. My preferences would be the GT. I'm equally interested in whether it's an A code or a C code or even an aftermarket or a late model 302 dropped in. I want the pony interior. I can always swap out parts to make the pony interior, as I mentioned, but that would be my second choice. So GT first choice, pony interior second choice, engine options, whatever, because I'm going to probably tweak the engine if it doesn't have what I want anyway, and it's not too expensive. Wheels, I'm not too worried. If it's not what I like, I'll sell the wheels and put ones that I want on it. So that's what I'm looking for in my '66 Mustang.